Another one of my mentors says, I don't want to be the richest guy in the graveyard. What's that do for you? It serves no purpose to be rich and ill.
Killing with kindness is not old school. It really gets to people when you can just be a smile that brightens their day, even if they hate everything that you say.
Life is serious. None of us make it out alive. While there's not a work-life balance per se, there is a balance between your finances, your relationships, your environment, your spirituality, and your health and your fitness. And it's about living a fulfilled life.
I would say you have to have the mindset that is right, and you have to play.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Coach Carroll. Welcome to another episode of the Sales Factory. I'm super excited today. I've got somebody in the commercial real estate space. I'm thrilled to welcome Krista Yockey, I think I pronounced that properly, Vice President of Brokerage at Cornerstone Group, a powerhouse in commercial real estate here in Kentucky. Krista's licensed both in Kentucky and in Indiana, the other side of the river there, specializing in industrial real estate with a wealth of experience in vacant land development and office leasing and sales. That's why we had her on the Sales Factory. Before making her mark in real estate, Krista worked as an environmental consultant for a Fortune 250 waste service provider, then led one of Louisville's largest residential real estate brokerages. She's also the proud co-founder of Crew Louisville chapter. We'll talk to her about that today, and serves on the CCIM board for Kentucky, championing mentorship and coaching for women and entrepreneurs in the industry. Outside of the office, Krista enjoys exploring local restaurants, farmers markets, and family time with her husband and son and their cockapoo. Please join me in welcoming Krista to the Sales Factory. Krista, happy to have you here.
Yay. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, shout out to Perplexity. I talk about AI all the time for you guys. I use Perplexity. I've never met Krista before. That wasn't her bio she sent over. Just chopped. I actually just put your email address into Perplexity. It was like, hey, Chris is coming on a podcast. Give me an intro. Boom. There it is. It nailed it. So I did confirm. I did cheat a little bit, guys. I made sure that the facts were accurate before we got on air. But Krista, I'm excited to have you here. Let's hop right into this thing. Let's talk about industrial real estate, because are we onshoring or are we onshoring? Because I don't think you can drive around and not see new warehouses going up right now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the tilt-ups, the large ones, see Amazon they're taking a lot of industrial real estate right now. So actually here in Louisville and in our market, we're really struggling for business owners that need under 50,000 square feet, which seems like a lot, but from a business standpoint, it's really not. And so it's almost on a waiting list, and landlords will to get absolute ridiculous top dollar because someone will pay it because they need it that bad. And so I'm sure you've talked about it on the podcast before, but UPS Worldport is a huge driver, as well as Ford in our market. So we have a ton of distributors that just need storage for warehouse purposes so that they can send shipments out. And that is primarily what our market is. But we do have quite a few automotive manufacturers servicing Ford and Toyota here in Kentucky as well.
Wow, that's insane. Sounds like I need to go sell on my Section 8 multifamily and build some warehouses.
You might be a little less stressed.
Well, I've got a great property manager. Coach Carroll doesn't fix toilets, or I don't want to hear about leaky faucets. So I just check the mailbox each month. We run on systems over here. But I am curious though, because you were in the environmental consulting field before you got into real estate. So what made you make the jump? Was it just the commission structure, or was that part of it? Talk to us about that.
I don't know if many people jump into real estate for commission structure. It's pretty terrifying to be a straight commission employee, but I used to sell compactors for waste management. So my husband is a mechanical engineer. My dad was an industrial electrician. So the manufacturing world has always been a part of my conversation. And when I started at Waste Management, yes, I could sell dumpsters to restaurants and Jimmy John's and just have that steady income, or I could sell whales and do recycling and metal compacting and all kinds of things that really interested me. I love seeing how things work and fit together in order to benefit the ripple effect of society. And so seeing, when you look at a car, and then you look at a stamping facility to see how that one facility only makes, let's say, the floor panels, and how
Yeah.
all those companies come together. I really love understanding those deeper layers of things. And so it was a lot of fun. I made good money when I was in the corporate world, but micromanagement is what killed me. So to have scheduled call blocks and pretty much almost scheduled bathroom breaks, this was the pre-COVID era. And I literally laugh about it with my husband because I'm just like, there's no way that they could get away with what they put us through back then, almost 10 years ago. But, I just wanted to feel free and have some autonomy. And the woman who trained me at Waste Management is still one of the best saleswomen I've ever met. And she sold 8 houses her first month in real estate. So, I was kind of her mentee and her mini me. And she said, just come and try it. And if you hate it, just go back to corporate. But I know you can do it. And by the grace of God, I've sold more than 26 houses in 10 months. And
Wow.
yeah, and so I was good at it, but I absolutely hated it.
Yeah.
But when you get used to so much freedom and waking up and working when you want, it kind of skews your perspective on life. So it's hard to go
Yeah.
back to that 8 to 5 plus grind. And so at the time, my husband was diagnosed with cancer. And
Oh, wow.
so we were just put through it. I quit my corporate job and I was doing well in real estate, but still straight commission was very scary. But to take him to all the chemos and the surgeries, and I wasn't working and he wasn't working, it got pretty scary there, because we didn't have another type of income to keep us going. So I decided to go into the management role so that I could get a salary. And that was actually a decent pay cut. I came to find later in time, but the stability was what I needed, and it helped solidified for me that that's not what I wanted for the future. So I took over Keller Williams, Louisville East here in the Louisville region. At the time, it had 278 residential real estate agents. And it was a wonderful opportunity, but COVID hit 2 months after I took over.
Mm.
And COVID was very challenging for even experienced managers. And
Just a little bit.
being a 25-year-old, you can imagine that I was not an experienced manager. So
So
I pushed.
you took over the Keller Williams Louisville East brokerage when you were 25?
That's correct.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, Ian, my husband, finally proposed, and he kind
Finally.
of finally,
How long did it take? How long did it take?
8 years.
All right, not as bad
Yeah.
as me. Tori, my wife now. We will be married 2 years in November. We just celebrated our 12th anniversary of being together, and so it took me 10
Congrats.
years.
Oh,
So
you
anytime I hear a lady say, "Well, he finally proposed," I'm like, a little hidden jab in there towards Ian. Shout out to Ian.
Yes, but kudos to Ian, more brownie points. He did sit me down and say, I know that you've done a lot of things that you're good at, but you've never enjoyed any of them. I
Oh,
want
wow.
you to just take a year. And if you didn't make a dime, I will support you. But he was like, I'm not really worried about it, but like, we'll see. But he was like, I want you to
I ain't
try
worried about
some.
it right now. I might be worried about it in 12 months. We'll have another
Yeah,
conversation.
definitely putting a chance out there, but he was like, I want you to try something you think you might actually enjoy for the first time. And I had always wanted to get into commercial real estate, but compared to residential, most residential transactions take about 30 to 45 days and then they get their commission check. Mine
Oh,
usually take about 9 months to 2 years.
wow.
So
So
and mine
we
can
talk
still
about
fall
sales.
apart. The
Oh, sorry, little break up there. That might have been my fault. We talk about sales cycles a lot on this podcast because one of the things that will beat a salesperson down faster than anything is not understanding their sales cycle, right? Like going from residential to industrial and thinking you're going to have that same sales cycle, right? And so you said 30 to 45 days in residential, and then it went to what? 9 months?
Yeah, 9 months to 24 months usually.
24 months. Like
Yeah.
Like when you say that, is that like, hey, you find the buyer, it just takes them 2 years to close on the deal?
Mm, More often, the 2 year mark is like, okay, I just met you, and then we
Okay.
closed. However, I did have a transaction last year where, very long story short, don't do this, people. A great great grandfather wrote in his deed that the land that he purchased could not be sold until his last grandchild died.
That sounds like
And
some shit I
so
would do.
yeah, it was very spiteful and odd. But there was 111 heirs. And so you can imagine they didn't all get along. And so then proceeded with lawsuits. And I was an expert witness in court and all these
Wow.
things. So that one did take 2 years from.
So what do you think what do you think grandpa did that?
Well, truthfully, I think a lot of people from that time want their family to have a place to enjoy. And I
Yeah.
also assume, right? Not safe to assume, but we can go ahead, that he probably worked really hard. The story that I was told was that he invented some type of plow equipment that John Deere or some bigger company bought the rights to. So he came into quite a
Wow.
bit of money. And so I assume of that culture. I mean, that was almost 1915, I think, 1920 that then that
Wow.
happened. He just wanted to have a legacy for his family,
Yeah. How
and
cool is
didn't
that?
think about the actual many generations to come. And I
Yeah.
also think culture in general has gotten a lot greedier. And so
Yeah.
to see, it is kind of sad when you get into real estate and you see how much greed has tainted people that
Yeah.
don't deserve or earn anything. Sometimes
Right.
some people work very hard, but sometimes some people just get handed a lot and they act like they require a lot more. Um,
Yeah.
so it's hard sometimes when you don't always agree with your client's perspective, but that's the job,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, because I've thought about that. Like we have some land that we live on now, and like I've thought about that of like, in my mind, I'm like, I know that if my kids sell it, it's not going to be worth near as much as if my great grandkids sell it, right? Now, retrospectively, Papal over there was probably like, damn, y'all been getting with it. There's a lot of heirs. I didn't think y'all have as many kids, right? Maybe that was the case too, a little bit. But anyway, I digress. That's curious. I always love finding cool little quirks in the stories. I do want to circle back to something real quick though, because I don't want to get too far away from this. You said you had your mentor that sold houses, and you came out and you ran hot. What's the biggest lesson that you learned from that mentor?
Hmm. It's not exactly a positive one, but it is a
Hey,
good lesson.
listen, Zig Ziglar. No, I'm sorry. Jim Rohn said, we pay successful people thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to do keynote speeches and tell us what we should do, right? He said, but we pay no mind to the guy living under the bridge that lost his wife, lost his kids, lost his job, lost everything. We don't pay any mind to stop and say, hey, man, tell me how you threw it all away, right? Because sometimes that's
Hmm.
just as important. So let's hear it. I'm curious now. You got the audience leaning in.
I would say she definitely taught me what lack of boundaries can cause, and
Ooh.
also how there is much positivity that comes from making a lot of money. But if you don't take the time and you don't have anyone to spend it with, then what's the point?
Mm,
So that really opened my eyes, because when I was younger, I was the personality type that, I mean, truthfully, I would just mow over people. I'm so driven and I'm so determined that, I used to just push people aside to get what I wanted because it was all about me. And then when I went through Ian's cancer, it actually changed my personality type to
mm,
realize, what is the point, if my person that I've chosen isn't here. What's the point of working? I don't want to work. I want to spend every minute with him. Luckily, his cancer wasn't that serious and he got through it, but it just put a lot of things into perspective. But
yeah.
that also, was the same time of life that I was in, going through his cancer and watching her as a mentor. And so seeing how successful she was, and she was always top of the charts, but
Mm,
she didn't take time to eat, and she would have a headache because she was so hungry, but she wouldn't take the time to sit down and eat. Her own kids would call and ask her to hang out, but she had to always cancel because she had to show houses because she needed to make money,
wow.
but she didn't need to make money. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
She had plenty, but
How much
but
is enough, right? It comes down to that
yes,
question.
Yes. And that is still, truthfully, DJ, that is a conversation that my husband and I still have, of how much really is enough. And I just had a baby. I mean, he's 9 months now. So I don't know how
Well,
long I can say
congrats.
that.
Shit, Willow's too, and I'm still like, man, like, because I had you may know Nathan Shanks. He's a insurance guy here in Louisville. So good buddy of mine. When my wife and I moved to Louisville from Carrollton, Kentucky, in 2017, he was one of the first guys I met through YPAL, and just have been great buddies since. He's my insurance agent on some commercial stuff. And I asked him one time because he's got Collins, his daughter, and he's got a son now as well. But I was like, hey man, like, give me pointers. And he's like, dude, I don't have pointers because the 2-year-old her is not the 1-year-old her, and the 3-year-old her isn't the 2 or the 1-year-old her. And like at, at at some point, like, that's the beauty of having children, is to watch them grow and develop. But at the same time, like, dude, the hard level just keeps going up because it's like always new stuff. So hey,
Yeah.
you ride that until that baby's 18, I think.
Well, it's definitely opened a lot more doors that have been challenging. And, I think there's a lot of reward there that I think will help. I'll be able to see it better when he can actually talk and respond.
Yeah.
um, but it has also taught me mandatory boundaries of, okay, you've literally got to keep this mini human alive, and
Yeah.
feeling loved and warm and fed. And so I was just talking to a friend at lunch today, before I had him, it was like, how am I going to have a baby while I'm working so much? I've got to keep up my work and my clients and my reputation. And now it's just like, I don't even know where my phone is after 6 o'clock because
Yeah.
I mean, I've just got to feed him and bathe him, and like, work's work, I'll pick it up tomorrow. And luckily in real estate, there are no emergencies. And so,
Yeah.
especially in my world, it takes about one to
Especially in
two weeks.
industrial. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
It takes like 2 weeks to get a showing in. So,
right, exactly. I want to move to trends like what you're seeing in the marketplace, but I really like I just I feel compelled to say this because I have a really great relationship with God, and having kids will change your life. It will give you new perspective that you didn't even see before, especially if you're a hard charger. So like Krista, everything you're saying is like those arrows are landing with me. But I think a lot of times in life, people say, why is God doing this to me? Like, why is this happening? And maybe even Ian at the time was like, why is this happening to me? And I'll tell you what I have found is that God works through his best soldiers. And so, the only thing, the silver lining that I always try to find, because my mother-in-law is going through lung cancer right now,
I'm
is
sorry.
that, oftentimes Tony Robbins says this: life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you.
Mm.
And, I think you'll probably look back, sounds like you kind of already are, like looking back and saying like, hey, that was really scary when we were in it, but maybe will be one of the best things that ever happened to you guys as a relationship and just as you as a person to develop, because life is serious. None of us make it out alive, right? That's the only thing
Yeah.
we all have looking for. Death and taxes are the only musts in this life. And I just think that, that's so powerful that you said, hey man, this changed because it slowed you down, and it showed you what's important. Because sure, we all want to make money. We want to be successful, especially my audience. They're young hustlers, they're hungry, but at the same time, while there's not a work-life balance per se, there is a balance between your finances, your relationships, your environment, your spirituality, and your health and your fitness. And it's about living a fulfilled life. And one of my mentors told me one time, he said, it serves no purpose to be rich and ill. Right. And so, like, I
Mm.
think back to your mentors just running herself into the ground. It's like, another one of my mentors says, I don't want to be the richest guy in the graveyard. What's that do for you? And
Oh, that's a
so,
good one.
powerful, powerful stuff. Let's lighten it back up a little bit. Sorry, I didn't mean to get too real
Woo!
there. But
Yeah. Love it though. I'm here for it.
what are some of the most significant trends that you're seeing right now in the industrial real estate market? Because I'm super excited to hear your input on this. I went to a commercial real estate panel thing that they had in J Town. This has been years ago, and gosh, Bolin, Jimmy Bolin's son, was up there, and he was talking about industrial. It's like it's coming, and like now we see it. I mean, if you drive up 65 from Louisville to Indianapolis, I mean, it's just littered with warehouses, and these aren't like small flex space warehouses. Which to me, like if I was going to go into commercial industrial, I think that is like the bread and butter, because to me, it's like incubator space for small businesses, right? You need a 1,000 square foot warehouse with a 300 square foot office and like a garage door in the back and a front door. And like you can build a bunch of them in one spot. That's always been super interesting to me. But what we're seeing are these, like you said, like 100,000, 2,000, like the one up in on the way to Indianapolis on the left side, I think as you get to Franklin, it was like 1 million square feet or something crazy. So talk to us about those trends. Like maybe if some of the listeners are thinking about getting in the industrial space, like what are you seeing out there right now?
Yeah, of course. So, I will say it's interesting to see the articles coming out here recently because in COVID, everything needed to be shipped. More people did meals brought to their house, more
Yep.
people ordered off of Amazon, those type of things. And so distribution blew up and there wasn't enough. And so tilt ups, you order a
Yep.
package, you tilt the concrete up, you have a building. And so since they were so fast to build, they popped up everywhere. And now they are actually pretty hard to fill, not super hard.
Oh,
We're not in that market, but it is starting to slow because owner users, meaning a company that will occupy the space for themselves, they don't need that much. They need racking and they need forklifts and they need that kind of thing. Most tilt tips were built for warehouse space, being just Amazon and those type of things to distribute out of. But it's so much space that it's hard to demise because it wasn't built that way. And most
yeah.
landlords are just willing to sit around and wait for that big owner, that big user that will come out. Because
Because they're signing like 20-year leases too. Like these aren't
exactly.
12-month leases when they go in these big warehouses.
Yes. And you have to think too, for the people that are interested in investing in commercial real estate, most banks will require 20% down. And that is a lot of money. And that's 20% down across the board. It doesn't
Yep.
usually matter who you are or what you do.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard for a local company to get to that scale. And when you have a seller's market right now, where they can get what they want for it. A lot of owner users are hitting a wall lately because they want to buy, they just can't find anywhere to go. And so they keep renewing these leases that therefore the new incubator companies don't have anywhere to go either because the other companies have stayed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And like I'm curious too, like you seen any warehouses that are just like ran by robots yet? Is that happening yet? Or are
That's
we
I mean, maybe not so much here. I know Southern Indiana is talking about the Meta data center, so
okay?
Amazon's been touching on having robotics sort their distributions a little bit more. It's definitely a conversation. If
Yeah.
you look at For Blue Oval, they were bringing in all these engineers, and their bottom scale, employees that they're bringing on are all college or associate educated because they have to know how to run the robotic machines. And so you're
Yeah.
seeing a lot more blue collar jobs kind of go by the wayside because you have to be educated in technology even to make it in entry level positions now,
Yeah.
which then forces employers to hire more qualified people that are required to be paid more. So it's
Yeah.
just this cycle of paying more, paying more, paying more. And right now, the robots aren't cheap either. And so
Right.
it's more kind of, pick your evil of which one do you want to pay into right now for
Yeah.
10 years, 20 years down the road. And for the big companies, it looks like it is actually robotics is what they're investing in. Whereas the small stamping companies, normal companies here in town, they have to continue paying maybe 17 to $25 an hour
Yeah.
for unskilled labor just to keep people pushing things across the shelves.
Yeah. And I'll give some clarity if you guys aren't familiar when she's saying stamping. Like when you like we have the Ford truck plant here in Louisville. It's not they don't make every part. Like there's a factory out in Shelbyville that literally they just make a couple of pieces to that truck and like everything's shipped in, trained in, not everything. Parts are shipped in, trained in, and then they basically assemble them at that assembly plant. And where I see the future going, especially, I mean, with Elon and the robotics that they're building, right, with XAI, and it's like, you know, with artificial intelligence and how that's changing the game. That's why I love sales, because I think at the end of the day, man, people talk, right? And like big transactions are going to have to get done through those. And then I would also tell you, like, if you're in a blue collar space, maybe you're in a factory right now, listening, hanging out with Coach Carroll in the sales factory, like, get out and go into the trades, get into plumbing, electrical, things like that, because you can make so much freaking money, man. It's insane. So I love seeing this trend that's coming, and who knows with these tariffs. I think everybody's getting a master class in negotiations right now, whether you love him or hate him. It's like, well, you can't just keep moving the goalposts. And it's like, well, that's what the professor that's never been in the real world says about negotiations. I'm sure Krista can tell you. I mean, when I've got 72 rental units in the West End of Louisville. They're all Section 8. And, I can't tell you how many houses I've put under contract for full asking price. And then I do the inspection, and then I come back and I'll offer you half. And it's like, whoa, and I had one older lady. She might as well have cussed me out. It was just as close as you could get without swearing at me. And she's like,
bless your heart.
Yeah, she said, Mr. Carroll, if this is how you think you're going to come to Louisville and do business, you won't own very much real estate. I'll tell you that much. And I was like, okay. So it's just funny. Let's do this, because we got a late start, guys. If you did, my power went out. I was late getting on the podcast. I was so upset about this, but it's all right. We got a bunch more coming today. As you guys know, I do these in blocks, and so, Krista, before we wrap this up and get out of here, talking about negotiations and on that topic, what are keys to like successful negotiations that you've done or you've seen prove valuable in your career? Because it sounds like you've got a wealth of knowledge, right? You was negotiating selling dumpsters, you was negotiating selling houses, you was negotiating now selling 1,000,000 square feet warehouses. So like, what's some of those like key skills or successful tactics that you've seen work in the past?
I would say you have to have the mindset that it's a game, right? And you have to play. And so when I was first into commercial, coming from the residential world where it's very much, hey, we're all in it together. There's enough business for everybody. And there is, but also the residential world is like, let's all help each other. And the commercial world's like, I'm gonna watch you drown. Yeah. Pretty much. And so, I had this transaction. It was so stressful and crazy. And on the last day of inspections, the buyer came back similar to what DJ just said. And he was like, hey, I've got to offer $500,000 less, or I'm not buying it. And I go to my seller, and everything that he provided was reasonable. He provided an expense sheet that explained where his $500,000 came from. I presented it to the seller, now knowing that there's all these problems that now cost this much. And, he was already upset that it sold, or it was under contract for less than he wanted. And then I come back and say, well, we're cutting $500,000. He's like, absolutely not. But we're not selling it to him. We're done. and I was just crushed after all this work I did. And so I had to go back to the buyer and say, I'm sorry. He said no. And the next day they emailed me like nothing happened.
Yep.
They moved right forward with the transaction. They were just playing the game. And so I think if you take that mindset of like, all right, what's really behind their words and how much can they get away with? That's what they're asking. And on our side, you have to ask the same. I just had a transaction this morning that we gave them an offer. It does not comp. I don't know where they got their price from. And I provided the comps that I found. They gave me the counter with the asking price. I was just kind of like, okay, so you're not even going to have a conversation about this, but that doesn't mean we're just going to meet you. No, we're still having a conversation about it. So right. I would say everything's negotiable, and you can't take it personally. It has nothing to do with you.
I mean, when I go to Kroger and buy the groceries, when I get done checking out, I'm like, is that the best you can do? When they give me the total, I'm negotiating with everybody,
They're like, DJ, you saved $78 today on Kroger points.
Yeah, you know what? It's like, hey, my wife's a veteran. Like, what else can you do for me? It's
oh my gosh.
You'd be surprised. Not so much in Kroger, but like in a retail, you go buy clothes, you go do what? Just asking that line, hey, is that the best you can do? People will negotiate with themselves. They're like, I got this coupon in the drawer here. I can take 5% off. I'm like, all right, cool. They say, no, it's the best I can do. Okay, I was still going to buy it,
I will say killing with kindness is not old school. It really gets to people when you can just be a smile that brightens their day, even if they hate everything that you say. if you are nice about it, they will at least stay in the conversation.
Yeah, that's so cool. One last thing, you mentioned Louisville restaurants. Like, if you guys are listening to this right now and you've never been to Louisville, you got to come here. We got some of the best food. Jack Fry's is one of my all-time favorites. But what is your favorite Louisville? I don't get a lot of people on the podcast from Louisville. So what is your favorite Louisville restaurant or hidden gem in our city?
So Louisville, fun fact for those listeners that don't know, is actually the second largest Cuban population after Miami.
What?
So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're all South End Preston Highway. But La Bogadita de Mima. It's a yellow house that was actually a funeral home.
Did not know that. Dropping bombs left and right.
Anyways, it is phenomenal. The atmosphere is so fun. You do have to book probably a couple weeks in advance unless it's a weekday. But my husband and I love everything at that restaurant. But I'm from Texas, and there's really not great Mexican food here, so that is my substitute is Cuban food now.
Yeah. So. El Nopal, not on the top of the list.
Oh my gosh, I need gag.
Their salsa tastes like ketchup. It's bad.
There's a place for it, I guess.
That's funny. No, I've ate there twice. Not El Nopal. How do you say it? How do you?
La Bogadita de Mima.
Ah, there you go. I've ate there twice. Both times I just asked the server, I'm like, what do you recommend? They're like, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, fine, sounds good. Dude, you asked me, like, Coach, you want a plantain? I'm like, no, I don't eat plantains. I don't even know what a plantain is. But dude, they brought out this dish. I ate every bit of it. Both times. It was the most delicious thing ever.
You need to get pineapple mojito, steak chimichurri, and the tres leches cake. There you go.
You had me at mojito. So, Krista, this has been fun. We're definitely going to have to get you back on the podcast again. We'll do a more extended version because there's so much going on, especially now I've got somebody in the commercial real estate space that I can go back to, seek information as things are changing, as trade changes. Who knows? We slap 100% tariffs on everything. You might fill up those warehouses pretty quick. Who knows what'll happen. Right. But if anybody wanted to reach out to you, maybe they're interested in you being their mentor, or if they're trying to find somebody to ask some questions about being in the real estate game, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Yeah, just email me. My email is Christa with a K at Krista@csgrealestate.com.
Fantastic. I know we didn't get to talk about crew. We'll plug that because I know Anne Marie is with you on that that endeavor over there, which is helping commercial real estate women in commercial real estate. I said that backwards.
Women who close the transactions of commercial real estate.
Spoken like a true pro.
And there's probably a crew near you. If you're here in Louisville, we have a Louisville chapter, but there's one in almost every state. So
fantastic. Well, guys, we'll make sure to put all of that down in the show notes on the CoachCarroll.com page. If you're watching this on YouTube or listening to it on the podcast, go over there. You can check out the details and the notes, as well as the team will be putting together some takeaway notes that you can use as well. So, Krista, with that being said, thank you so much for coming on the Sales Factory. This has been so much fun.
Yay. Well, thank you, DJ. Call me anytime. I'll be back.
Sounds good. Guys, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, the like button, the smash, the share, the comments, all that. It helps me get more reach to more people to help them increase their game. It's level up their hustle. That's what we're trying to do, help people succeed out here in this world. Until next time, hustle, it's worth it. I'm Coach Carroll. This is the Sales Factory.